On a cool September evening, Private First Class Geno Murley lay low behind his Browning machine gun. He watched shadows shift in the Belgian darkness. He could not know that the chaos unfolding would force an impossible choice. It was setting in motion a night that defied every expectation. By dawn, 52 German soldiers would be dead. The world would know the name of a coal miner's son from Scranton, Murley. Just 20 years old and having served 14 months in the Army, he was a son of the anthracite mines of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Before Pearl Harbor, he was destined for a life underground. Like his father Antonio, an immigrant from Italy, instilled value of hard work and quiet perseverance. Instead of the mine shaft, Geno found himself in muddy fields outside Sars-le-Brière, Belgium. He was a machine gunner with Company H, 2nd Battalion, 18th Infantry Regiment. This was part of the famed 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. They came ashore at Omaha Beach on D-Day, pushed through Normandy, and raced across France. By September 1944, 4 months of continuous combat left the division severely depleted and exhausted. Company H, meant to be 193 strong, now numbered 147. Replacements simply could not keep pace with the casualties. Murley, who had joined in July, was a newer face among hardened veterans. He learned fast that one either adapted or perished in this environment. His machine gun section, 9 men, was positioned on the company's left flank. It was a standard defensive setup. Murley, as the gunner, had his assistant beside him, with 7 riflemen providing security. At 9 o'clock that evening, the anticipated German counterattack began. It was not a mere probe, but a full, overwhelming assault. Perhaps 150 to 200 German soldiers, supported by fearsome MG-42 machine guns and mortars. Murley opened fire at 300 yards, his Browning hammering out 30 caliber rounds at 450 per minute. Tracers cut through the darkness, illuminating falling German figures, yet still they advanced. His assistant gunner, a young man from Ohio named Daniels, kept feeding ammunition belts. The riflemen returned fire, but their efforts seemed like a whisper against the roaring storm. A machine gun, Murley knew, was the only thing that could truly stem such a tide. He kept firing. At 9:22 p.m., a German mortar round landed just 15 yards to their right. Shrapnel screamed through the air, and 2 of the 7 riflemen fell, wounded and bleeding. Still, Murley held his ground, the Browning his company's last hope. By 9:30 p.m., the situation became dire. The German assault had reached their position. Soldiers were now inside the American line, just yards away. Company H, compromised and facing overwhelming firepower, began to withdraw to secondary positions. Orders came down the line: pull back, disengage, regroup. But Murley's section was cut off, Germans between them in friendly lines. Retreat meant abandoning the machine gun. That gun was the only thing protecting Company H's withdrawal from complete collapse. Daniels, his face etched with concern, looked at Murley, asking what they should do. Murley's reply was unwavering: keep firing. The riflemen, out of ammunition and with 2 wounded, saw the Germans closing in. One spoke of surrender. Murley's words were stark: you surrender, I'm staying. At 9:42 p.m., the 8 other men in Murley's section, including the wounded, stood with raised hands. German soldiers approached, took them prisoner, and marched them away into the darkness. Murley and Daniels remained at the gun, 2 men against an advancing force, with only 400 rounds of ammunition remaining. Then Daniels was hit. A German rifle round found its mark, piercing his chest. He slumped against Murley, gone in an instant. Murley was alone. Germans were now within 30 yards, consolidating their position, believing they had secured the line. A German squad of 6 approached Murley's position, rifles ready. Murley, quick of mind, slumped down next to Daniels' lifeless body, feigning death. His hand rested on the machine gun trigger, but his body was still, face in the dirt. The Germans prodded him with their rifles, kicked his leg, but Murley remained motionless. Assuming both Americans were dead, they moved on. Murley waited, counting to 60, listening to the German voices just 20 yards away. When he was certain they were not looking, he rose, grabbed the Browning, and swung it towards their position, opening fire. The burst caught the Germans completely by surprise. At point-blank range, the machine gun unleashed its fury, and Germans fell within seconds. Murley traversed the gun, firing in all directions, turning what they thought was a secured position into a deadly trap. German return fire came swiftly, but Murley was already back behind the gun, presenting a low profile in the darkness. For 15 minutes, the firefight raged, Murley against an entire German force. He fired short, controlled bursts, conserving ammunition, targeting sounds and muzzle flashes. The Germans reorganized, assaulting him again from two directions. By 10:15 p.m., German soldiers were once more upon his position. Murley again slumped beside Daniels, feigning death for a second time. The Germans checked the bodies, seeing only 2 dead Americans, and again they moved on. Murley waited longer this time, counting to 120, ensuring they were truly gone. Then he was back on the gun, firing. This time the Germans understood. The position was not taken. Someone was still alive, still fighting. They needed to eliminate that gun. A German squad launched a direct assault with grenades and automatic weapons blazing, attempting to suppress the machine gun long enough to overrun it. Murley fired through the assault, Germans dropping just 10 yards from his position. He was operating on pure instinct, loading, firing, traversing. By 11 o'clock, the German assault had stalled. They had lost too many men trying to take one machine gun. They pulled back, consolidating at 100 yards to wait for dawn. Murley reloaded, checking his dwindling ammunition, 180 rounds remaining. Not enough for another sustained firefight. He would have to ration. He sat in the darkness next to Daniel's body, alone, surrounded. No friendly forces within 400 yards. Retreat was impossible, and there was no way to call for help. Standard military doctrine suggested surrender when cut off and surrounded. His 8-section mates had done exactly that. No one would have blamed Murley for following suit. His father worked the coal mines for 30 years, an inherently dangerous life. He taught Geno that you don't quit just because things are hard. You do your job. Murley's job was to defend that position, and the Germans still needed stopping. The job was not done. Throughout the night, Germans probed the position, small groups testing, trying to locate the source of the persistent fire. Murley met each probe with short bursts of 2 or 3 rounds, enough to drive them back, but conserving his precious ammunition. At 2:30 a.m., a German patrol of 4 approached from the right, crawling, attempting to flank. Murley heard them before he saw them. Movement in the grass, the rattle of equipment. He traversed the gun, waited until they were 15 yards away, and fired 1 3-second burst. All 4 Germans fell. At 4:15 a.m., another probe came from the left, met with the same deadly result. The Germans learned that the American position remained active and deeply perilous. They stopped probing, waiting for dawn, intending to assault with light. Murley used quiet hours to strip ammunition from discarded belts, feeding it into his gun, preparing for the inevitable dawn assault. He thought of Scranton, of his father, of the mines. It wasn't so different, he realized. Underground, you couldn't see far either, just your immediate area, your job. Antonio had taught him, do your job well and you come home alive. At 5:45 a.m., the first light of September 5th broke over the landscape. Murley had been alone at the gun for 8 hours. In the growing light, he saw the full extent of the devastating night. German bodies lay scattered everywhere, 19 directly in front of his gun. More to the sides. His own position was battered, sandbags ripped apart, ammunition boxes shredded. Daniel's body still lay beside him. Yet the Browning still functioned, still pointed toward the enemy. At 6 o'clock, American artillery opened up. Friendly fire. Company H was coming back, launching a counterattack. The Germans heard it too. They knew what was coming. They had lost too many men. The position was no longer worth the cost. At 6:15 a.m., a white flag appeared. The Germans wished to surrender not specifically to Murley, but to the American force they believed was attacking. Murley saw the flag first. At 6:30 a.m., an American negotiating party moved forward. A captain from battalion headquarters and 2 lieutenants. They accepted the German surrender, began processing prisoners, and then they found Murley. He was still at his gun, still covering the position alone. Daniel's body beside him, German bodies everywhere. The captain surveyed the scene, then looked at Murley. "Son," he asked, "where's the rest of your section?" Murley replied, "Surrendered around 21:45 last night." "And you stayed?" "Yes, sir. Gun needed defending." The captain walked the position, counting the grim tally. 19 directly in front of the gun, more scattered around. The final count was 52 German soldiers dead, all killed by 1 machine gunner, 1 coal miner's son who had refused to quit. Company H medics examined Murley. Miraculously, he was unwounded, merely exhausted, dehydrated, covered in dirt and powder residue. But he was alive. They pulled him off the line, sending him to the battalion aid station for rest, food, and water. He had been in continuous combat for 9 hours, 8 of them completely alone. Murley slept for 14 hours. When he awoke, battalion command wanted his report. What happened? How had he survived? Murley told them simply and directly, without embellishment. The position was overrun, his section surrendered, he stayed, feigned death twice. He fought all night, and the Germans surrendered at dawn. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Smith, listened. Then he said, "Private, you just earned a Medal of Honor." Murley's response was immediate. "I just did my job, sir." Smith countered, "Your job was to defend that position. You did it alone against a force many times your size. That's beyond your job. That's heroism." The Medal of Honor recommendation moved swiftly up the chain of command, approved by regiment, division, and finally the Army. On June 15, 1945, Private First Class Geno Murley stood in the White House. President Harry Truman presented him with the nation's highest military honor. Murley's father, Antonio, the coal miner from Scranton, was there, wearing his best suit, watching his son receive the recognition. He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. His pride was palpable. After the war, Murley returned to Scranton. He used the GI Bill to pursue an education and later worked for the Veterans Administration as an adjudication officer, helping other veterans secure their benefits. He rarely spoke of September 4th. When asked, he would simply say, "Just did what needed doing." In 1984, NBC newsman Tom Brokaw interviewed Murley for a piece about D-Day veterans. Murley, who had been at Omaha Beach, recounted the night in Belgium. Brokaw pressed for details, and Murley, in his straightforward manner, provided them. Brokaw was stunned. "You fought alone all night? Why didn't you surrender like the others?" Murley's answer echoed his father's teaching. "Wasn't raised that way. My father worked coal mines 30 years. You don't quit because it's hard. You do the job." That interview became part of Brokaw's research for his seminal work, The Greatest Generation, featuring Murley's story. Murley never sought attention, living a quiet life in Scranton focused on work, family, and community. In 2002, the Veterans Center in Scranton was renamed the Geno J. Murley Veterans Center in his honor. At the ceremony, Murley, then 78, remained humble. He passed away on June 11, 2002, and was buried in Scranton under a small marker bearing his name, rank, and Medal of Honor recipient. Most people in Scranton know the name of the Veterans Center, but fewer know the full story behind it. 1 machine gunner, 1 night, 52 Germans, 8 hours alone. The Army teaches Murley's actions in leadership courses as a case study, in individual initiative under impossible circumstances. The scenario presented is often, your position is overrun, your section surrenders. You are alone. What do you do? While doctrine suggests retreat, Murley chose to stay, to fight, to do his job. His example teaches that sometimes determination can defy all odds. turning a mathematical certainty of defeat into an improbable victory.